reasons why it moved. Maybe someone got up and went to get a glass of water or something. But it's the fact that there were footsteps walking out of her room and just not coming back, just standing there. Keep in mind, not all of this was right after the other. There was a break of like 15 minutes between each thing. But this last thing is what made me want to cry so hard until I couldn't see. We started goofing around again, in fact, mocking whatever was upstairs. It was probably dumb as shit to mock, as it scares me. It almost makes me cry anytime I think I tell this story. Eventually, it all came to a stop. No more noises, no more footsteps, no nothing, no nothing. We all thought we were A-okay. We were wrong. We were wrong. Time came by. I have no idea what exact time it was, but I believe it was almost done being 3 a.m. now. With that being said, we all thought we were good to come out from under the blanket. This was very hot. Under that blanket and hard to breathe. We all got out of it and had a sigh of relief, just feeling the cooler temperature of the room on our faces. Minutes passed, which felt like hours to me. Seconds felt like minutes. I'm not sure. It just felt like we were there longer than we really were. We all went on our phones and just scrolled TikTok or something. I know we were all kept busy until some point we all just got off and started talking about anything really. While we talked, it came to the point we all just shut up and went under the blanket on our phones. This is hard to understand. While we talked, it came. We just shut up and went under the blankets on our phones again. This time was around 3:40, 3:50 when the next thing had happened. We all came out from the blanket a couple minutes past. While we sat there laughing and goofing off, still under the bed. Still in the bed. Then at some random point, mid-laughing our ass off, me and one of my buddies look at the doorway, the entrance of the room, and see a black figure standing there with a black top hat, standing about 6'9" feet. 6'9" to 7 feet tall, with a good set of shoulders, and all he was doing was just standing there watching. Me. He stood there watching me, and the 3 guys. I thought he had 2 friends. Something seemed off. Wasn't doing literally anything, didn't move, just stood there looking at us. I let out a small little scream and quickly yanked the blanket off my head, as did my buddy, and I started shaking and almost staring up at the sight I saw. Eventually my buddy, told me it's not his first time seeing it. He had done more research on it and said that what he saw was called a shadow man. Time passed, and we all made for a run for it out of the living room to the basement. The living room of the basement. And we all just talked it over and eventually fell asleep. And to this day, it makes me shake and almost cry thinking of it. Sometimes letting out some tears of fear, even when I'm at the safest place I could be in. Please let me know if I'm going crazy or not, because I still spend nights and hours thinking about this. Interesting, because this was not the best. Like, it wasn't super well written, but in a way it was kind of charming. I've seen pretty bad, horror movies, and what he wrote was so much worse. When we found the book, I told him to keep my name out of it, and he was an ass for writing it. He expressed to Ellie that the book was therapy for him, and that he always felt better after writing in it. I was always surprised that she kept talking to him after, but I'm pretty sure she cheated with him. So I guess she was blind to it. I don't know, I felt crazy trying to prove that he was not good to be around, but it took everyone so long to realize how sick in the head he was. He started threatening people with violence. He tried to bring my friend into some woods before her dad showed up. Later found out that he, an intoxicated minor after graduating. I left my friend group long beforehand because he wasn't the only problem, and I realized that most of those people were not my true friends. The group fell apart, and it took a long time for people to move on and heal. There was so much more that happened, especially with Allie, but John was probably the scariest one. I cannot find his book anymore. I'm not sure if he deleted it or that I can't remember the name right, but y'all find it, let me know. LOL. Wait. I'm confused. He said he wrote fanfic about all of our deaths, but they never mentioned what the deaths were. It was probably so gruesome they didn't want to mention it. That's really scary. That's like a true scary, like not paranormal scary, but like true scary. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be even associated with someone like that. That's great. That's like, yeah, to be writing a book depicting people's deaths, and that's therapy. That's not really good therapy. I hope not. I hope that's not good therapy. Let's see. There's only one comment. I knew a guy like this when I took one of my first jobs after grad school, and ultimately left the position because of him. He getting quit a few months later because he was fleeing an assault charge from a girl in his hometown. Multiple of my members, we were co-supervisors, privately told me they were scared of him, but wouldn't speak